Hi there, welcome to my channel. I'm Holly and this channel is all about my exploration of the world of graphic novels, sci-fi, and fantasy. Now, I am at the very beginning of my journey. I've read a grand total of 5 graphic novels and I'm very aware that I have just barely begun to scratch the surface of this amazing world. And you know, I really wish I had started this years ago. I really feel like I've missed out on a lot of fun, but no time for regrets. I'm jumping into all of it now, and so far I am really enjoying the ride. I think I'm going to take this all the way. So for this video, I will be discussing Green Lantern, Secret Origin by Geoff Johns. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. I loved it. And thank God I did, because if you've seen my last video on DC Universe Rebirth, Wonder Woman, Volume 1, The Lies, dear Lord, can that title be any longer? Anyway, The Lies. I did not love it. I had a lot of problems with it, and my main complaint was that I just could not get engaged with the story, which is a huge problem because I didn't want to finish it. I had to force myself to complete it, but I had no problems engaging with Secret Origin, and I give all the credit to Geoff Johns. I'm telling you, this graphic novel actually made me realize that it's the quality of writing that is key to my enjoyment of it. And you know, I never just was thinking, why is this in here? It's so unnecessary. Is he just trying to make the story longer? And in fact, there is a part of the story that I wish was a little bit longer and that I had gotten some more details about it. And I'll get to that a little later. So, going into the story of Green Lantern, I went in completely blind. I couldn't have even told you one fact about Green Lantern, although I suspected that a lantern was involved, and I was thinking, what makes the lantern so special? Does he work in a lot of dark places and he needs like a light to guide him? But you know what I found was so surprising? That there's not just one Green Lantern, like you've got one Batman or one Superman. There are multiple Green Lanterns, probably hundreds or thousands all over the galaxy. And the really cool thing to me was that pretty much anybody potentially could become a Green Lantern. You could become one, I could become one. We just have to have a couple of things in place. It's helpful if you are in the vicinity of a dying Green Lantern so that the ring and the lantern and some vital information can get passed on. And also you must possess a very important quality, which is you have to be fearless. So enter Hal Jordan, our Earthling Green Lantern. You know I love a good backstory, and this one did not disappoint. So let's do this. Alright, so you got Geoff Johns, who does just an amazing job of creating this buildup of awfulness for Hal Jordan, so that by the time he has to make the decision if he's going to become a Green Lantern, he is ripe for the picking. He literally has no other options. Now, as a young boy, he absolutely worshipped the ground his father walked on. He was his hero, and he wanted to be just like him. So, you know right off the bat that something terrible has to happen to Martin Jordan, and it does. He had been in the Air Force, and when he got out, he was working as a test pilot for Ferris Air. And he was demonstrating one of the airplanes for some, what do you call them? Investors, not inspectors, investors. when there was a serious malfunction. The plane goes down, crashes, Martin Jordan does not survive. And of course, all of this happens right in front of Hal. And this event completely obliterates the family. Hal, his mother, and his two brothers. And for Hal, this really triggered an anger problem that haunts him really throughout his life, I guess. It certainly was a recurring theme in the story, and his mother never recovers. I don't think she truly lived another day after. And so he grows up feeling kind of lost and like no one understands him. And when he turns 18, he decides to follow in his father's footsteps and joins the Air Force. And his mother's response was brutal. She disowns him. Now, well, she'll see him, but only if he leaves the Air Force. Now, I think, I know she was hurting a whole lot, but boy, that response, it makes you think she had a little bit of, maybe a screw loose there. And the hits just keep coming. His mother gets sick with pancreatic cancer. And obviously, he's desperate to see his mother, but he just cannot bring himself to quit, just to go up and quit the Air Force. So he does the next best thing, and he punches out one of his superiors, which, of course, he is promptly dishonorably discharged. And the worst part of it is he doesn't even make it to the hospital to see his mother. She passes away before he can get there. So now that he's out of the Air Force, he tries a couple of different things. He first of all becomes a test pilot, and that doesn't work out because, as it was described, he's kind of a hot dog, kind of a show-off, and so he caused a lot of damage to some of the planes and equipment, and so he was actually costing them a good bit of money, so he was let go, and no one else would touch him as a test pilot. So then he tries his hand at becoming an airplane mechanic in training. That too does not work out. So now we've reached a point where he has nothing. He's got no Air Force, no job, no family. Seems like the perfect time for him to become a Green Lantern. And speaking of perfect timing, I'm here, you're here. If you enjoy this content, I would ask that you take a moment to subscribe, hit the like button, and come back for more. So, how does Hal become a Green Lantern? Well, we've got this other story brewing at the same time. So much awful is happening to Hal. We're introduced to this character, Abin Sur, who is a total kick-ass Green Lantern who doesn't give a flip about the rules that have been handed down by the Guardians of the Universe, because he's got a prophecy to stop. And the prophecy has been foretold by these prisoners from this planet, Ysmalt. Not really sure how to pronounce it. It's Ysmault. Anyway, the prophecy goes that Earth is going to give birth to the Black. It's also been referred to as the Black Night and the Blackest Night. But anyway, it's essentially the total annihilation of the galaxy. And it further tells that Abin Sur's ring is going to fail him when he needs it most. So what I find interesting is that he is going to just go rogue leave his sector, which is an absolute no-no. That's one of the rules. You have to stay in your own sector that you've been assigned to patrol and protect. So I think he feels that he's got enough willpower and enough faith, and he's fearless. So he's going to be able to stop this thing. If he can't, he's going to die. And so he's actually kind of going into probably certain death. So he reaches the planet and begins interrogating these prisoners. And dear God, these are some of the most grotesque beings that I've seen. And the worst one, his name is Atrocitus, which is perfect. He's terrifying. And dear God, it's the teeth. It's the teeth. His whole head is just essentially rows and rows of these very sharp, terrible teeth. And by the way, little sidebar here, I love the name Atrocitus. I actually think it would make the perfect name for a cat. And if you're not a cat person, you can name your dog this, but it can't be like some big, intimidating dog. Because that would be too obvious. You would need to give the name Atrocitus to this sweet, adorable little dog. Maybe a dachshund or something. Anyway, so back to terrifying Atrocitus. Abin Sur is getting nowhere. He's pumping them for information. He needs to know exactly where on earth this whole prophecy is going to kick off. And when he can't get any answers from them, he makes the fatal mistake of taking Atrocitus, putting him on the spaceship, because now he's going to take him to Earth to try to force him to tell him where this thing is going to happen. And of course, Atrocitus is sitting there needling him, saying, "Your faith is faltering. You know your ring can't save you. You feel fear." And then all of a sudden this physical altercation takes place. And that's putting it mildly. It's a big, terrible brawl. And Atrocitus is the victor, unfortunately. He is able to secure his own escape and ensure Abin Sur's death. Kind of killing two birds with one stone. Now, Abin Sur is able to crash land his craft onto Earth. And so immediately a new or replacement Green Lantern has to be found. And of course, Hal Jordan is in the vicinity. That's important. And he apparently is the most fearless one around the area. So all of a sudden, Hal Jordan hears, "You've been chosen." Like, what the F? And then you do see him with Abin Sur. And Abin Sur is giving him all of the pertinent details, I guess as fast as he can before he, passes on. He tells him about the lantern and the ring, the Green Lantern Corps, the prophecy. And he gives him a very interesting detail about the lantern, that it's completely useless against the color yellow. And so then, he asks, I guess, sort of kind of asks, Hal, what do you think? Would you like to accept this job? And Hal, he's got nothing left at this point. And so I guess he's thinking, why not? I've just been fired from my last job, so I guess I'll give this one a shot. And as Abin Sur is taking his final breath, he says, "Sinestro." Now, unfortunately, I already knew about Sinestro because my husband said something. "Have you read about Sinestro?" And I want to learn about all of this organically. And so, when Hal hears Sinestro, he's thinking, what's a Sinestro? And I already knew it was a name, but anyway, that got a little spoiled for me. As I'm spoiling it for anyone out there who may not have read this yet. So anyway, now remember, you've got Atrocitus. He's on Earth. He is roaming around trying to hunt down one William Hand, who I will talk about him in a little bit, but I'm just saying he's a bit of a weirdo. All right, so anyway, a little bit of time passes, and Hal, he's got the ring. He discovers he can fly. And also, he manages, a plane gets in trouble, and he manages to bring the plane down to safety. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you've got the ring. What kind of power do you actually have? So far, he's able to fly. He's landed a plane, and so I'm starting to think, Superman, with this ring on, are you able to have the kind of powers that you know, Superman would have? I know that there are probably some limitations. I'm not sure. I hadn't gotten there yet, but it seems to me that with this ring, you might be almost as powerful. So anyway, Hal winds up having a lot more questions than answers. So he decides to go back to the crash site and do a little bit of digging around, and also to give Abensur a proper burial. And while he's there, he retrieves the lantern. And then immediately, he is unceremoniously zoomed off into space to go to the planet Oa for Green Lantern training, or as Hal calls it, boot camp. And okay, this is the part that I really enjoyed and I thought could be a little bit longer. So you're introduced to this character named Kilowog, who is kind of a rough, tough individual. He's the one who's running the boot camp. And I thought, oh wow, am I going to get like the PG version of Full Metal Jacket? And I kind of did. You know, I think Jeff Johns really enjoyed and had a bit of fun writing this part. And it did provide some comic relief, which is always nice when you're reading something very dark. In fact, excuse me. In fact, I was thinking, oh my gosh, Green Lantern would make a fabulous television series. And I stupidly told my husband that. And then I looked down and I said, oh God, is there already a television series? And he asked me, do you want me to tell you? And I said, no, I'm going to figure this out on my own because I've got brilliant ideas. At least I thought they were brilliant. Of course, you can never reinvent the wheel, but I was just envisioning a wonderful television show, and you could dedicate one season just to Green Lantern boot camp. And it's doable because, you know, seasons are very short these days. They're like 6 episodes or 8 episodes. And you could really flesh out some of those other characters. You could find out who Hal's drinking buddies are and who he gets along with and who he doesn't get along with. And, you know, there could be a love interest. I was envisioning a mix of Full Metal Jacket and Gomer Pyle USMC, because I know there are probably at least 1 or 2 doofuses, you know, running around trying to be trained up. So I thought that would be very entertaining. I would watch that show. So when Hal finishes up his training, he returns to Earth to begin his duties. And meanwhile, we've got another little story in the works and a little bit of intrigue. We are introduced to another Green Lantern, Sinestro. Now, is Sinestro a take on the word sinister, or is it based off of the name Sinatra? I think it could be a little bit of both, because let me tell you, Sinestro is full of himself. He's got a very high opinion of himself. I know that he is known as the greatest Green Lantern, but does he have to run around reminding everybody? And if you kind of look at him and look at the poses he makes and how he just kind of presents himself, I think he thinks he's pretty good with the ladies. But anyway, he is contacted by whom we don't know, but the being that's contacted him wants him to go to Earth and help Hal investigate Abensor's death. Now, this is a huge breach. You now have a third party asking someone to leave their own sector. And I started to think, you know what? I think this might be one of the Guardians. I have a feeling it is. It's someone, and I'm not so certain that they only just want Sinestro to travel to Earth just to find out about Abensor. I'm thinking it's possible that this particular Guardian may have also bought into the Blackest Night prophecy. Not sure. It was just kind of going through my head. But anyway, Sinestro's like, okay, sure. And then that makes me think, are there any Green Lanterns who follow the rules? I don't think they do. Everybody's just leaving their sector to go off and do, whatever adventure that needs to be done at the time. So he does. He travels to Earth, meets up with Hal, and as they are looking at the crash site, a pre-recorded message comes up, and it's from Abensor. Hey, some of these names, I'm telling you, just keeping them in my head and trying to pronounce them correctly. All right, Abensor has given them a pre-recorded message, and he's telling them everything. Look, you've got to believe me. The Blackest Night prophecy is true. And then he goes on to talk about how in the past the Guardians had created yet another police force, and that just everything went awry. Like there was a glitch, and they all went crazy and completely obliterated one of the sectors. So I think that Hal and Sinestro felt like they needed to locate Atrocitus. Very important. So you got Atrocitus looking for one William Hand, who has been described as having the perfect insides to be the one to give birth to this terrible Black Knight. And I want to talk about William Hand for a moment. Okay, I started reading about him, and the first word that came to mind was creepy. This is one creepy dude. He has kind of an unhealthy fascination with dead bodies. Now look, his parents, and I guess now he, helps them run this mortuary. Now, I think if you were growing up and your parents were running a mortuary, that yes, you would run into, a body or two coming up, but this seems a bit abnormal. And even his mother knows that something isn't right, because she calls down to him and is asking him, William, what are you doing? Nothing, as he's very quickly and quietly zipping up a body bag. But anyway, at this point he is running a funeral. Atrocitus crashes the funeral, looks at William and says, You are the incubator of death to all. I mean, he does have the perfect insides, I suppose. And let me tell you, this was frightening. Jaws, the movie Jaws, made me afraid to go into the water. This scene makes me afraid to attend a funeral. Anyway, William is off like a shot. Atrocitus is right after him. And of course, Hal and Sinestro come in at the right time. They are able to arrest Atrocitus. So they take care of him. William just keeps running. He doesn't even have time to say, thank you for saving my life. And I don't blame him. He's probably going, what in the world? And he's gone. So the plan was to return Atrocitus back to the prisoner planet. But Hal and Sinestro get summoned by the Guardians. They're in trouble. They are to report immediately to them for discipline for illegal fraternizing. Okay, so they're headed to Oa. I have to tell you, the Guardians, this whole time that I was reading this, I had a strong visual in my mind about what the Guardians would look like. And they were these tall, towering, intimidating beings with long, flowy hair and staffs, and they were standing still as statues. I have no idea why I had them standing just still, but they were. And so it sounds like I'm describing Gandalf, and that's kind of what I had pictured. So I thought it was hysterical when I see these little blue beings, and I'm thinking, they're so small. And then I turn the page, and Hal is saying to Sinestro, they're so small. And Sinestro's going, shut up, shut up. Kind of like, your mom kicking you under the table when you say something utterly stupid in front of your grandparents at the dinner table type thing. Okay, we need to hear what they have to say to us. And, Hal's fearless. So he just goes right into interrogating the Guardians. He's asking them, hey, what's up with the color yellow? Why are all of your buildings yellow? What is it about the blackest night? What's going on with that? And you know what? The Guardians start backing off a little bit. And that's when Sinestro chimes in. Hey, you know what? It would be a really good idea if some of us Green Lanterns could get together, to work on things sometimes when it's necessary. And that's all she wrote. The Guardians do say, hey, that Blackest Night prophecy, that's all lies just to gin up fear in the Green Lanterns. But, they're like, okay, it's all good. You can keep your rings, you can go back to work, no punishment. And I'm thinking, boy, that sounds a little hinky. What are they getting close to finding out? And what are they keeping a secret? There's something they don't want Hal and Sinestro to find out about. And I'm thinking, probably there is something to the prophecy. They cannot have people find out because then there would just be utter chaos in the galaxy. So that's something I need to read more about because I think that's not the end of this story. So speaking of the end of the story, Hal, I thought this part was lovely. Hal does want to reach out to his brothers. He writes a journal and just talking about everything up to that point, including that he's a Green Lantern. So I think that's pretty cool. And he calls up his brother. They meet, talk for a little bit, and he hands off that journal to him. So I thought that was a nice ending of him trying to kind of reunite the family. All right, so wrapping up here, I thought this was very well thought out story. Very well written. I would definitely recommend this to anyone, particularly those in my shoes who are just now starting out. It was a great kind of backstory book. And as you know, I have been ranking everything that I've read up to this point. Now, Wonder Woman doesn't make it because not in the DC universe or this one is she ever going to be in my top. But there was a shakeup, and I had to think, I started reflecting. I think I really need to rank these based on my just pure joy, pure enjoyment of reading these. So there's actually a flip in this. So I'm just ranking 4 now. In 4th place is Superman, the Man of Steel. 3rd place is Superman, Speeding Bullets. See those flipped places there. 2nd place is Green Lantern, Secret Origin. And still hanging on to 1st place is Batman, The Killing Joke. All right, guys, I'm out of here. But please stay tuned. I'll be right back.